Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we need to talk about something incredibly serious. A crisis that has become one of the worst humanitarian disasters on our planet. Yet it barely seems to make headlines. We're talking about the ongoing conflict in Sudan. What's happening there is catastrophic, and the latest developments signal that things are getting even worse. So, in this video, we're going to break down the latest situation, explain why it matters to all of us, and discuss the broader implications. The conflict, which pits the Sudanese armed forces, or against the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, the RSF, has been raging without pause. But recently, a major turning point occurred. The RSF captured the city of Fasher in the Darfur region. Why is this so significant? Fasher was the last major stronghold of the Sudanese army in the entire Darfur region, a massive territory the size of France. Its fall not only represents a huge strategic victory for the RSF, but it also unleashes a new wave of horror for the civilians who were trapped there. The scenes coming out of Fasher, and indeed across Sudan, are absolutely heartbreaking. We're hearing consistent reports of grave humanitarian atrocities. Hospitals are being systematically attacked, civilians are being targeted and killed in large numbers, and entire communities are being displaced. To give you just one harrowing example, during the attack on Fasher, a maternity hospital was hit. The World Health Organization reported that over 460 patients and their companions were killed. These were mothers, newborns, and families seeking medical care, caught in the crossfire. This isn't just collateral damage. It's a direct assault on the most vulnerable. Alongside the violence, another crisis is unfolding. A catastrophic food security situation. Famine, which is the most severe classification of food insecurity, has now been officially declared in several areas of the country. We're not talking about people just being hungry. We are talking about mass starvation. Millions more are on the brink, living in what experts call IPC Phase 4, or emergency conditions, just one step away from full-blown famine. The scale of hunger in Sudan today is unprecedented in the country's modern history. Agriculture has collapsed, supply chains are broken, and the systems that people rely on for food have been completely decimated by the fighting. And if that wasn't enough, the healthcare system has all but collapsed. In most of the conflict zones, hospitals are no longer functional. They've been destroyed, looted for supplies, or abandoned because it's too dangerous for staff to work. This collapse has created the perfect breeding ground for disease. We are now seeing major outbreaks of preventable diseases like cholera and measles, spreading rapidly through displaced communities, where sanitation is poor and access to clean water is almost non-existent. For millions, a simple illness can now become a death sentence. To truly understand the horror of what's happening, we need to look at some of the key dimensions of this conflict. First, the alarming rise of ethnic violence and war crimes, particularly in Darfur. This isn't just a political power struggle between two military factions. It has taken on a deeply disturbing ethnic dimension. We're seeing credible reports from the United Nations and other observers of ethnic targeting, summary executions, and other atrocities that echo the genocide that occurred in Darfur 2 decades ago. Communities are being targeted based on their ethnicity, a chilling reminder of a past that many hoped would never be repeated. The second key dimension is the staggering scale of displacement and the blockade of humanitarian aid. Millions of people have been forced to flee their homes. They are now internally displaced within Sudan, or become refugees in neighboring countries like Chad and South Sudan, which are already struggling to support their own populations. Worse still, many millions are trapped in besieged areas, cut off from the outside world, with little to no access to food, water, or medical care. Aid organizations are struggling to reach them, as both sides of the conflict have been accused of deliberately obstructing humanitarian access, using hunger as a weapon of war. This leads us directly to the third dimension, the famine and hunger crises we touched on earlier. It's crucial to understand that this isn't a natural disaster. It is a man-made catastrophe. The fighting has disrupted planting seasons, destroyed markets, and sent food prices skyrocketing. Families who once had farms and livelihoods are now entirely dependent on aid that cannot reach them. UNICEF and other organizations are warning that a generation of children is at risk of malnutrition, which will have devastating long-term consequences for their development and for the future of Sudan itself. Finally, we cannot ignore the international dimension of this conflict. This is not happening in a vacuum. External actors are deeply involved, complicating any efforts of mediation or peace. The United Arab Emirates, for example, has been repeatedly implicated in supplying arms to the RSF, fueling their military campaign and enabling the continuation of the war. This foreign involvement not only prolongs the suffering of the Sudanese people, but also undermines accountability for the war crimes being committed. When external powers back different sides, it makes a unified international response incredibly difficult. So, why does all of this matter? First and foremost, because this is a human story. This is one of the world's worst and most neglected humanitarian crises. The combination of intense warfare, widespread famine, mass displacement, and the collapse of the health system has created a perfect storm of suffering. We're talking about millions of lives hanging in the balance every single day. Men, women, and children are dying from violence, starvation, and disease. Their stories need to be heard. Beyond the immediate human cost, the conflict has profound implications for regional stability. The fall of Fasher could mark a significant turning point, potentially leading to a de facto partition of the country, with the RSF controlling the west and the SAF controlling the east. Such a scenario would likely trigger even more conflict and could destabilize the entire region, from the Sahel to the Horn of Africa. Neighboring countries are already feeling the strain of the refugee crisis, and further fragmentation of Sudan could have ripple effects across the continent. Finally, the international community's more accurately, the lack thereof is a critical factor that will shape the outcome for millions. So far, the global response has been insufficient. The diplomatic efforts have been fragmented, and the humanitarian appeals are severely underfunded. The world's attention seems to be elsewhere. This lack of decisive action sends a terrible message that a crisis of this magnitude can be allowed to unfold in the shadows. The way the world responds now will determine whether millions of civilians are protected or abandoned to their fate. This is a dire situation, and it's easy to feel helpless. But awareness is the first step. By understanding what's happening, by talking about it, we can help push it up the global agenda. We must demand more from our leaders. More diplomatic pressure, more humanitarian funding, and real accountability for those committing these atrocities. The people of Sudan deserve more than to be forgotten. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this important update. I know this was heavy, but it's crucial that we don't look away. If you found this video informative, please give it a like and share it to help raise awareness. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing for more deep dives into critical global issues. Stay informed and stay engaged. We'll see you in the next one.